Welcome to the first module. Let's take a look at what is SEO and why is it important. So let's take a look at the definition in Wikipedia. So in terms of what is SEO in Wikipedia, it says search engine optimization is the process of affecting the visibility of a website or a web page in a search engine's natural or unpaid organic search results. So that's quite interesting actually, because the definition there doesn't talk about any particular technique, any way of achieving that. It means that SEO is the end result of something, not the process. And that means, of course, that SEO changes all the time. Now, you might have seen quite a few blog articles in the past saying things like SEO is dead, SEO doesn't matter anymore. But if we think about it, SEO is all about affecting the result within an organic search result, a natural search listing within Google. So we're talking about Google as the example here, and Google is a search engine. So as long as if Google continues to exist and it continues to offer organic search results, then the ability to alter where your web page appears in those organic results still is there as well. So that means that as long as if search engines stay, then SEO will stay. So SEO changes in terms of process, but SEO is just as important now as it was a few years ago and will be for the foreseeable future. As long as if there are search engines, SEO will be important. Okay, I'm on google.com at the moment. So let's have a quick look at a typical search engine result and have a think about why search engine optimization is really important. So let's search for, say, digital marketing agency. So searching for digital marketing agency, we can see there are lots of results here, but what's the difference between paid and organic? Well, I'm sure you're aware, you can see the ad signs beside the top 3 results here. Now the amount of paid adverts on Google changes depending upon the term and whatever company is actually wanting to bid in it. But what we do see is an obvious ad sign. So quite simply, these are paid pay-per-click adverts on the top on the top section here and also on this side, and then underneath that the next results, which are usually 10 in number, but they can be even less than that depending on the search, is your organic or natural listings. But you might think, well, if I paid, then I'd get a result right at the very top here, and surely that's better. Not necessarily. In fact, probably not at all, because most people who are searching Google, searching online, are aware that these are paid results. And they think, generally speaking, that they're more likely to be able to trust organic or natural listings. So these listings underneath the paid results generally get more click-throughs. Now there's been lots of different studies on that, but the results that have come back are generally in the region of between 70 and 94% of the clicks on a single page are thought to be on the organic results rather than the paid results. So that's the number one reason to begin with there. You're much more likely to get a click through to your site if you're featured in the organic results rather than the paid listings. And the next benefit, of course, is you're not paying for every single one of these visitors. Now, I'm not going to click on these paid ads because I'm not particularly looking for that service, but if you did click one of these ads, how much do you think it would cost? Now, this does vary, of course, according to industry sector, but I've done a little bit of looking up this particular keyword term, so I'll go to the other page that I've got open here, and I'm having a look at this website SpyFu, and they tell me roughly how much people are bidding on different keyword phrases. And I see for the key phrase digital marketing agency, people are bidding $9.58 on average per click there. So that's a lot of money when you think of the quantity of clicks available. It gets 2,500 roughly searches there, according to the figures. So you're talking about a lot of clicks and a lot of cost that you can drive from that keyword phrase, and that's just one keyword phrase there. So you're having to pay for traffic. You're not going to get as much traffic because more people click on here, and probably more people end up trusting and being comfortable with that. Because if you think if a business is ranked here and not just paying for it, then they're more likely to want to maybe even do business with that company. So lots of benefits to appearing within the organic listings. So moving on to the second module, and this is where it just gets a little bit more tricky, and let's have a look at how search engines work. So let's start by having a look at the 5 key areas involved in how search engines work. And that's number 1, crawl, number 2, cache, number 3, retrieve, and number 4, rank, number 5, SERP. So those words don't necessarily mean much to you at this stage, but let's look into them at a little bit more depth. So number 1, crawl. That is, first of all, when a search engine robot crawls through your site and discovers your web pages. So why do they visit your site? Well, your site is probably linked to from another site or perhaps mentioned somewhere socially online, just some kind of way of a search engine discovering your site to begin with. So once they've discovered your site, they'll crawl through your site and see what pages, if any, that it wants to actually rank or actually store within their web servers. And that takes us on to cache. Cache is about storing your web pages on their servers. So Google will come along and take a copy of your web page and actually store it on their servers. So it's a simplified copy of a web page. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a little bit. But then after that, when someone conducts a search, they'll want to retrieve the information. So you've got maybe thousands potentially of web pages that could be relevant to a particular query, and retrieving the information is what search engines do when that query is entered into Google. So after that, they'll pass that information through their algorithm, and there's actually over 200 elements within their complicated algorithm that they use to decide whether or not one page should be number 1 and one page should be number 1,000 or 1 to 100, whatever it is, wherever your web page is deemed to be in terms of that particular search result. And then they'll display the listings. So they'll display the listings on a search, on a SERP rather, a search engine results page. And that's what SERP stands for. So those are the 5 key areas in how search engines work. And over the next couple of videos, we'll go into them in a little bit more detail. So how do Google find out about your website to begin with, so they can crawl it and actually determine what it's about? Now here's the Google search result again for the keyword phrase digital marketing agency. And this set of results is pretty good. You know, all these are digital marketing agencies. It's a very relevant set of results. So one of the ways that these agencies have gone about getting their websites to appear on the first page of Google for this particular keyword phrase is by hanging out in the same kind of neighborhood, by making Google aware of the fact that they're all fairly related and relevant to that keyword phrase. So how can we see this? Well, let's have a look at another tool called TouchGraph. Now this is the TouchGraph tool, just available on touchgraph.com online for free. And if you have a look at this, if I've searched digital marketing agency on TouchGraph, and I'll click a few of these results that are of sites that appear high for this keyword phrase and see what turns up. Just takes a moment or two to load. And here we go. Now, I've expanded this a little bit, so it looks quite complicated, but this is essentially how Google sees the web or discovers web pages to begin with. So yeah, if you have a look at these results, if I hover over them and just move about, you can actually see which web pages Google thinks are related to each other, or indeed touchgraph.com thinks are related to each other. But Google works in a very similar kind of way, and these results obviously come from Google's search results as well. So if I have a look at, say, TechWise or iProspect or Bruce Clay, I can see that there are obviously relationships between the site and between similar kind of keyword phrases there. So related to bruceclay.com, related to ineedhits.com. So Google is quite comfortable with understanding that all these sites are to do with digital marketing, and that's how Google makes a decision about where to rank a site to begin with, or at least understanding what a site is about. So if you've got a few links pointing to your site, hopefully they're from fairly relevant websites within your niche, and then Google can start to make an educated guess as to what your website is about. And of course, the more links and mentions that your brand gets online, the more comfortable that Google is that your site is definitely about that particular genre online, and then they're more likely to be able to rank it highly. So that's one thing within Google's algorithm to think about. Think about what kind of neighborhood links to your site. You know, is it good, relevant, authoritative sites in your industry, or is it not so many relevant sites? So there are other ways to get links to your site. You don't want to be buying links or anything like that. We'll talk about link building later on within this course, but simply to cover at the moment is the crawling of your site. So this is where search engines find out about your site to begin with. They crawl to your site from another site that's mentioned you or linked to you. They'll find out about you, they'll crawl through your site, and then hopefully they'll start to cache your site. So that moves on to the second part. Okay, so Google find your site, and then they crawl through your site, decide what pages they like, and then they cache those pages, that is, store copies of those pages, and take copies of them and actually store copies on their server. So let's take a look at how they go about doing that. Okay, I'm on my website, digitalmarketingradio.com here. And just imagine that Google has discovered this site after another site's linked to it. So what Google's doing is it's landing on this page and then it's finding links. So finding links to other pages on the site here. So on the home page, I've got links to other episodes, other pages on the site there. So let's just click through to a random one here there as well. So I've got a page here about what is content marketing. It's an interview that I recorded fairly recently. So Google will have a look at this page, but they won't have a look at how it looks visually. What they'll do is they'll have a look at the source code. So if you have a look at the source code of a web page, just right click on your mouse on the web page and click view page source. It might be phrased slightly differently depending on the browser that you're using, but if you just click view page source, then you'll get something like this. And this is actually the code that is behind this particular web page. And this is what Google crawls. It doesn't crawl things visually, it crawls the code behind the web page. This is the language that it really understands. So it's looking for things to give a good indication as to what that page is about. So it looks at things like what the title is, what the description is of that page there, and then actually the content of your site itself there as well. So it looks to find information like what is your heading, or what are the strong tags in there, what's the content in there, what kind of phraseology is used within there. So it crawls through your site, and then if it deems your page as being fairly original, as being a publisher of original content, and also reasonably authoritative, then it'll start to take a copy of this page and then cache it on their server. So it'll store a version of this page on their own computers somewhere in the world. And if you in fact, if you go on to google.com and you search for Google data centers, then one of the first results will be the Google data centers page on their own website. And Google actually show you their main data centers around the world, what they look like and what goes on there as well. So you can have a look at that there. And you can have a look at pictures of places of where your data is stored. And copies of your web pages are stored on Google's computers in centers like this around the world, and that's called caching of your web pages. Okay, so Google have cached a few of your web pages, and they've stored copies of those pages, the cached versions, on their servers somewhere in the world. But the next stage is if someone actually conducts a search on google.com for any kind of phrase, then Google has to go and get that information, go back to its server and actually find the information that the searcher is looking for. So if we go back to our original example, someone searching for digital marketing agency, then all these results are produced, of course. But if you look at the very top of the screen here, it says about 88.5 million results, and then it says 0.44 seconds. So Google's saying there is that it took 0.44 seconds to go to its big server location and actually find all these results and said, okay, now what we've got to do is pass them through our algorithm, and then we can be confident that we can display these results and these will be relevant for the particular search term. So if we have a look at the data center again, that is what a data center looks like. It's just phenomenal. You should go on the Google website, google.com/about/data centers, and just see a few pictures of these data centers on the Google website. There's some more nicely painted Google colors there for everything there. So that is the Google data centers there, and of course they've got locations all over the world, as discussed earlier on. So if you're a searcher and you're based somewhere in, for example, Indonesia, then Google will go wham to the Singapore location, and once it goes to Singapore, it'll have a copy of your information of your web pages on their Singapore servers, and that's the servers that they will use nearest to the user doing the searches to actually take the information from, so that it displays a very, very quick result. And that, of course, is where the 0.44 seconds come from. So as we've seen, Google can display millions of search results, or at least it can get millions of search results for a particular keyword phrase. So the previous example, digital marketing agency, there were millions of search results that Google could consider for listing on its search results page. But it has to decide what order to display them in, and that's quite challenging as well. How do you actually determine if a web page should be number one, lower on page one, or in fact not in the first 100 pages or so? So the way that Google does that is it passes all these results through something called its ranking algorithm. Now if you actually search your favorite search engine for the phrase the anatomy of a large-scale hypertextual web search engine, then you'll come up with this article here. And if you look who it's actually by the founders of Google, Sergey Brin and Lawrence Page. And what's incredible about it is it actually goes into detail on how Google originally worked. So published in 1998, and actually if you read the whole document, so this is the whole document here, the anatomy of a large-scale hypertextual web search engine here, you probably don't have much interest in reading right through it here, but it goes into detail about the Google architectural overview, how everything works here, major data structures here. Quite an incredible read there online, and you can just find that fairly easily online. What's particularly interesting is it actually goes into detail about something called PageRank. Now, PageRank was the key element in Google's original algorithm, and this is how Google ended up delivering results that were much more relevant and useful than other search engines at the time. But the key point here is what Google do once they find all these web pages that are stored, that are cached on their servers, is they're passed through this algorithm, this complicated formula to actually determine which web page it should display for a particular query at number one, and which it should not even think of actually including within its first few pages of search results. So that's Google's ranking algorithm. So we've had a look at what happens when someone searches for a keyword phrase on Google. Google goes away to its cached results, goes away and gets what it thinks are all the results that are relevant to the keyword phrase, passes it through its complicated algorithm with over 200 different elements to it, but then it displays the results on its SERP, its search engine results page. And it can display the results in lots of different ways, depending on what aspects of its algorithm that it's taken into consideration. So let's have a look at that. Now, what I've done here is I've conducted the search that I showed you previously in Google Chrome incognito mode. So you see this little stealth guy in the top left-hand side here of the browser. So you get that if you go to the drop-down menu here at the top right-hand side of Chrome and select New Incognito Window. And what that's giving you is it's giving non-personalized results. So it means that Google don't know necessarily who you are, and you're not signed into Google. So when that's the case, then you're not going to get personalized results. And you get different types of results, whether you're logged in or not, or whether you've been to that website before, and also depending on your location and the type of device that you're using. So looking at these results here, when you search for digital marketing agency, you've got fairly generic results, no site links within the description there as well, not really location specific apart from the adverts there when Google do know where you are, but they're not actually really significantly personalizing your search results. So if I search for something different, I've already made this example here as well, so I'll click on the other tab. And if I searched for digital marketing agency in London, all of a sudden my results are quite different. I've got a map here as well, and I've also got many more site links underneath the results there. So if someone is looking for a particular product or service within a location, Google tend to give very different results, and those will have added regional significance. So results that are obviously relevant to where I'm looking for physically. And that's not only the only differences that Google can make in search. So I've also actually made that same search logged into my normal Google. So if I show you across here, that's me logged into Google. So if I search for digital marketing agency, now the top results aren't any different at all. But if I scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see I've got a couple of Google Plus results. And that's because I've got contacts and their posts on Google Plus are relevant to this particular phrase. So this shows you that Google Plus can be very significant to SEO as well, in that these kind of posts are more likely to appear for personalized results, and then you'll click through, you'll visit them, so it can significantly help with your rankings to people who have followed you on Google+. So that's something else to consider. So just a few things to think about there with Google search results page. First of all, it can change significantly depending on whether or not a user is logged in. It changes depending on the device and also the location. So don't necessarily expect to get the same Google search result wherever you are, and it does impact SEO, and it makes SEO difficult to measure, but it doesn't mean, of course, that focusing on SEO cannot be extremely beneficial for your business. Now that takes us towards the end of our How Search Engines Work module, so let's just have a look at a summary of what we looked at. So here are the 5 main areas that we covered in this module, and that is starting off with crawl. So a search engine will send out its robot to crawl your site after they've discovered it. So they'll crawl your site after they've discovered it through a link from someone else probably. Then after that, they'll move on to caching it. So caching it is storing copies of the web pages on your site that they want to store on their systems. It's not necessarily every page on your site, but it's what the search engine deems to be the most important pages on your site. So they'll take copies of that, but it's not visual copies, of course, it's copies of the source code behind your web page. So they'll store that on their servers all over the world. So Google's got copies of your popular web pages on its servers all over the world. Now, when someone conducts a search, so the result we used, the example we used was digital marketing agency. So if someone searches for that, then Google will go out to its machine and actually pull out all the pages that it's got, that is cached from all the sites around the world that it thinks are related to digital marketing agency. And there are loads of ways that it will do to actually determine that it thinks it's relevant pages to that particular keyword phrase. There's obviously look at on-site optimization as well as the relevance of your domain. domain. And I will cover more of that later on in this particular course. So then it's retrieved the information. It's got maybe a few thousand pages that it thinks are relevant to that particular phrase. And the next step in the process is to rank everything, and it'll pass everything through its algorithm. So Google's algorithm has probably about 200 or over 200 different elements to it. Part of that is local, depending on where you are and depending on what device you're using, and part of that, of course, depends on the optimization of the page and the authority of the page as well. And again, we'll cover more of that later on in this course. And then, of course, the last stage is the SERP. Google will display its results in its search engine results page. So its search engine results page can be different, again, depending on your device, depending upon your location, and also depending on whether or not you're signed into Google. But what does make the most significant difference in the results that you're given is whether Google think these results are relevant to the phrase, and that's where search engine optimization works. And hopefully by the end of this course, you'll be fairly comfortable with how to optimize your site much better. Welcome to the next module in our course, and that is taking a look at a brief history of SEO. So way back in 1991, Tim Berners-Lee published a paper online talking about the World Wide Web. And in 1993, this web was made free of charge to anyone who wanted to use it. So from 93, 94, quickly people started to build web pages, and then, of course, people needed to find web pages. So in order to find web pages, coders started to build search engines. So search engines were around pretty early on in the days of the web. And by the mid to late 90s, the most popular search engine was AltaVista. And AltaVista, you may well remember it, was a fairly good search engine at the time, but it based the results generally upon what's called the meta keywords tag. So within the source code of a web page, the webmasters, the website designers, can actually include a list of keywords that they thought were relevant to each page. But unfortunately, that was open to abuse. Of course, people started listing keywords that were not relevant for the pages, so the users didn't get great quality results. By 1998, though, Google came along, and with their backlink formula, with their PageRank formula, as they called it, they calculated that it would be more relevant if a web page had more links to it. And that made a lot of sense, because of course, if a site hardly had any links pointing to it, then it's a sign that it's probably not that relevant. But if another web page has got 200 links pointing to it, it's a good, strong signal that that web page is fairly relevant to a query, and especially if you actually look at the keywords, the rich keyword anchor text within the link that's pointing to that page. So I'm going to get a little bit more depth into this in future videos, but this is just to give you a brief summary of how the web started. Over the next few years, Google became very much dominant, and they controlled search, and in many countries they have more than 90% of searches. So it's quite incredible how Google control the search environment nowadays. And they've had to change their algorithm over the years, and I will cover more of that over the coming few videos. So let's take a little look at what AltaVista and Google looked like in the late 90s, how their search algorithms evolved, and what's happened to them since. So this is a wonderful website called Internet Archive, and you can find it at archive.org, and it actually shows screenshots of every popular website and what they looked at different stages of development in history. So I'm having a look at altavista.com, and have you seen here it's got results way back to 1996. So let's have a little look at what AltaVista looked like in 1996. So if I click on a result maybe from December of that year, then it was fairly basic, very, very early search engine. So that's what AltaVista looked like in 1996. I don't actually remember using it back then. I probably used it for the first time in 99. So let's have a little look at what it looked like there. So let's pick, say, May from 1999. And this is actually more what I remember altavista.com looking like. So it's one of the first search engines. It was a portal, which meant that it had different news stories on their homepage as well. Get Internet Explorer 5. Maybe not now. So altavista.com was really the main search engine there at the time, of course. And I mentioned in the previous video, the way that it tended to work is by having this meta keywords tag behind a web page and actually reading these meta keyword tags. And these webmasters would list the keywords that were allegedly relevant to their web pages. But the problem, of course, was that the keywords that were included were often not particularly relevant to web pages. And unfortunately, many people started putting famous celebrities in from the time. People like Britney Spears maybe featured a lot in the meta keywords tag. And I've also that confused search engines like AltaVista, and they just didn't they weren't able to deliver quality results because of that. So then along came the big beasts, Google, in 1998. So this is the results on archive.org of Google. So in fact, the first image we see is from 1998, and that's from November the 11th. But November the 11th, that doesn't say much at all. If we're going to open it up, all it says, if we move the screen left here, is "Welcome to Google." So not much information there. So we will have to go one screenshot forward to the 2nd of December 1998 to see what Google looked like at the very beginning. And this is December 1998, and this really is the first use of the Google search engine. And Google quickly changed things by bringing in this thing called PageRank. It looked at the value of links, it looked at links pointing into web pages, and because of this formula, instead of using the meta keywords tag, it tended to deliver much higher quality results. So it gained traction quickly, and I remember by the year 2000 preferring Google as my default search engine. So in the year 2000, 2001, 2002 or so, Google were doing really well. They were delivering high quality search results, certainly high quality search results compared with other search engines out there. But of course, over time, webmasters realized that they could bring thousands of visitors a day to their website using Google. And unfortunately, that meant that a lot of people decided to try and game the system. Now, in one of Google's original papers, they explained online how PageRank works. And PageRank essentially was a score from 0 to 10 that Google gave most web pages out there on the World Wide Web. And this helped people decide what pages were authoritative and worthwhile getting a link from, and what pages weren't. Because of Google's early formula, early algorithm was all about the quality of links. So if you had page C here on the screen and page A linked to you, page B linked to you, page D linked to you, and you only linked out to a couple of other pages, then you're more likely to have a higher page rank, because the higher number of links that pointed to your site compared with the amount of pages that you linked out to, then the better your page rank score. So people were looking for thousands of links to point to their web pages, and there was one time way back in the early 2000s where this worked very, very effectively for improving your ranking on Google. So more and more webmasters became aware that they could manipulate the system. That is, they could get lots of other websites to link to them. They could swap links with their friends and with other website owners that they don't even know and that weren't even relevant to their particular website. And as long as they swapped links and had more links pointing to their site, then this would ultimately increase their ranking. So the whole system could be manipulated quite easily back in 2003, 2004 or so. And of course, it wasn't going to last forever, because this was deteriorating the value, the quality of search results. So Google reacted. Now, one of Google's best-known employees is a chap called Matt Cutts, and he's essentially the chief spam fighter at Google. And he posted this blog post back in 2005, saying that there was this Google update, called Jagger at the time, that targets low-quality links, reciprocal links, and link farms. So let's look at those three things here for a second. Low quality links. So those are links that point to your site with very low page rank. So obviously links that have been built just for the sake of it and aren't from websites that are fairly authoritative. Reciprocal links. So if you're linking out to hundreds of different websites and those same 100 or few websites are linking back to you, those are reciprocal links. Google, quite rightly, would judge a link as being more authoritative if you've chosen to link out to it and they're not necessarily linking back to you. That's like a vote for that website. But if you're sharing links, if you're swapping links, then it's reasonable to think that the link is probably made by an agreement as opposed to a decision to link to that website because it is a useful resource for your particular readers. And then link farms. So Google wanted to target link farms. Link farms were websites that you could go to swap links, to exchange links with other sites. So those things took a big hit, and that significantly changed Google's search engine results back in about 2005. Now, a year further on, in 2006, Google gave BMW a death penalty, according to this article here on the BBC website at the time. So this is 2006, and what essentially happened then was BMW were building what's called doorway pages for terms like, as can be seen in this article, used car. So what would have been happening is when someone searched for used car, lots of different search results would appear, but when someone clicked on that search result, they'd end up back on the BMW website. And those are called doorway pages. Pages just created for search engines, but then these pages redirect back to another website. And essentially that's not creating a good experience for Google users because I'm sure the user is not expecting or not wanting to see the same website all the time. So Google clamped their foot down and said, doorway pages aren't allowed, we're not going to be accepting this at all, and if you're going to do this, then you're not going to be appearing in our search results. Now, BMW were just out of Google for about 3 days, but this sent a serious message to many big brands out there, and they started to behave quite a bit better in terms of building websites and pages, doorway pages, into their own websites. So Google started aggressively clamping down on link building way back ago in 2005. So does that mean that you shouldn't do anything to do with link building now and that link building is a very bad idea? Or in fact, does it mean that link building doesn't work now? Now to answer that question, have a look at this particular search result with me. So I'm in Google here, I'm in incognito mode, so my search results are not going to be personalized at all. So I'm going to search for the keyword phrase click here. Okay, so Google automatically fills in everything anyway, but I just wanted to type in everything. Now you see the number one result is PDF Reader from adobe.com. Now if we have a look in the page title and the meta description here, now don't worry about these terminologies here, I'm going to cover them later on in the course, but just having a look at everything that's written here, there's no mention of the phraseology click here at all. But you've got click here down here, you've got click here in other results. So why is this ranking number one? So let's have a look at the web page. So it's actually the Adobe website here. And on the page, there's no mention of the phraseology click here either. In fact, we can actually have a look at the source code of the website here, do a quick find of the phrase click here, and that phrase doesn't exist anywhere on this page at all. Something to think about. So Google is ranking that as the number one result for that keyword phrase, but the phrase isn't mentioned anywhere on the page at all. Well, if you've had to think about linking and how that works, and anchor text, that is the link text included within the link itself in text format. Well, if a link points to this page and within the link text it includes the words "click here," then that's a signal to Google that this page is about click here, about the phrase "click here." So if you think about it, then a lot of websites will be linking to this page using the phrase "click here to download the Adobe Reader." And if that phrase is included in hundreds, perhaps thousands of links pointing to this page, it's a strong indicator to Google that this page must be about the phrase "click here." So it's an excellent demonstration that links and the text within backlinks still is a significant factor within Google's algorithm. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and buy links or go out there and try and get lots of links pointing to your site, because you've got to be a lot more subtle than that. You've got to have links that happen organically, happen naturally to your website. But all I'm saying here is linking is not dead as part of Google's algorithm, and it's unlikely to be dead for any time in the foreseeable future. Just what you've got to be is very, very strategic and subtle in the way that you acquire links, and hopefully I'll give you a few ideas with regards to that throughout the rest of this course. So even although we can still show that backlinks are still a significant part of Google's algorithm, that's not to say that backlinks are the most important thing to be thinking of now. Backlinks aren't what they used to be, and the way that you achieve them certainly has changed significantly. So let's have a little look into how Google's algorithm has changed further over the years and bring us up to date with that. So moving forward to 2010, Google completely changed the way that its search indexed worked. So what happened in 2010? I think it was essentially because of services like Twitter. Because if you think about it, back then, people, if they wanted immediate news, didn't go to Google for it. If they wanted to see what had happened in the news over the last hour, Google weren't generally delivering what searchers were looking for. Twitter was a lot better at handling that. So Google mixed up the algorithm a little bit to try and deliver newer, fresher results when the particular search required it. Because if you think about how the old algorithm worked, it was largely based on quantity of links. And if an old article, maybe from the year 2000, had several thousand links pointing to it in relation to a particular keyword phrase, then you can understand why Google's old algorithm would think that page was the most relevant page on that particular topic. But of course, things are updated all the time, and just because something was published quite a few years ago and it has thousands of links pointing to it doesn't make it the most relevant source on that particular topic nowadays. Perhaps something's just been published 2 hours ago and it's only got 2 links pointing to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's less relevant. It could be probably more relevant for today's audience. So Google completely mixed things up with its caffeine update, and it was able to determine better by using things like overall domain authority if a site should have fresh content ranked quite quickly. Move forward another couple of years to 2012, and it started doing things like recommending that your site was optimized for smartphones. And that makes a lot of sense, because certainly nowadays many sites have over 50% of their visitors through smartphones or tablet devices. So people tend not to necessarily browse the web through a desktop computer nowadays. So if you use my site for an example here, so this is having a look at my site at digitalmarketingradio.com. So feel free to go onto the site and do something similar yourself as well. So what I'm going to do here is drag the mouse just to the side of the screen. In fact, drag the window a little bit there as well. So you can actually see it on my video screen there as well. Drag the left-hand side in there as well. Now you see the whole web page within the video frame there as well. Now look at this here. When I actually change the browser size. So just in case you don't know how to do this, actually, you click on this normalize, this maximize button right in the center of your top right hand side buttons here. So do that to make your browser pop out, and then you can actually change the size of your browser. Now look what's happening here. If I move the window up slightly, you can see even more with the site what's happening. So get it back to the same level here, and look what's happening with the image, look what's happening with the text there. I've got lots of other things going on just down below the window, so I'm going to move the video screen further down there as well. Moving, and look what's happening. So this is what the website looks like on small mobile devices. The text moves. I've got all this content down here at the bottom that is responsive. This is what's called responsive design. So the look and feel of this page, of this podcast, completely changes depending upon the size of the screen. And that's what you need to make sure happens with your website. You need to make sure that your website is responsive so that it displays effectively no matter the size of the device. Because I remember years ago, I used to design web pages, and I used to design them for fixed width screens. So it started off with 640 pixels wide, moved on to 800 pixels wide, then moved on to 1024 pixels wide. But now, if you actually have a look at your Google Analytics stats and have a look at the devices and the window sizes that people are using to view your website, you'll probably see that there are hundreds of different device sizes that people are using to actually find your site. So it is essential to use a responsive design. And in fact, I'm going to take this domain name, digitalmarketingradio.com, and put it into Google's mobile friendly test. So I've got this loaded up here as well. So if you go to google.com/webmasters/tool/mobile-friendly, you can copy and paste your URL into there. You can click the analyze button, and then Google will go ahead and do a test of your website. So make sure you do that, because if your website isn't mobile friendly, then you're putting off a lot of people. And not only are you putting off people, you are putting off search engines as well, because Google are moving more and more towards using ranking signals about the quality of user experience and ensuring that sites are mobile friendly as well. So that's the reason why Google are offering a tool like this as well. So is your site mobile friendly? Use the tool and find out. And it seems like over the last couple of years, Google has made more and more changes to its algorithm. In fact, probably more changes in the last couple of years than it's made in the years before that combined. So what's it done over the last couple of years? Well, every so often, Google likes to come out and strike fear into people. And in 2014, they essentially announced that they were penalising My Blog Guest, which was a guest blog network. So many legitimate people were using that service to actually submit articles to other sites and have an author bio at the end of that link back to their site. But Google have been very iffy about guest blogging recently. So you've got to be careful about just publishing a post with a view to get a link. You publish a post perhaps to offer significant value to an authoritative site, and then maybe they give you a no-follow link back from that, and that works. But because they're penalising sites like this, they're making a public statement that you shouldn't just go after links for the sake of getting links. You should actually do things, do activities that encourage other websites to talk about you and naturally link to you. Another update that Google have been focusing on a little bit more recently is the Penguin update, as they call it. So the Penguin update is an anti-spam update that was first released in 2012, but has been updated quite a few times since. And this is essentially against spammy activities, spammy links, but also spammy use of repetition within your web pages. So essentially what you don't want to be doing is, my site about blue widgets offers great blue widgets because these blue widgets are the best blue widgets in the world. So those kind of sentences would be picked up by Google Penguin. So write naturally, write a decent volume of content and publish content that isn't available elsewhere, and don't repeat keyword phrases constantly in a page, and you should be fine as long as if you don't get loads of spammy links from different places. So that's Google Penguin there. Going into my next window here, and that's the Google payday loan algorithm. So they've actually been also publishing notorious industries that have been associated with spam in the past. So lots of industries, it could be payday loans, casinos, Viagra, different terms like that that have been associated with really aggressively targeting, trying to get their sites ranked highly on Google. So unless you compete in those sorts of industries, then you shouldn't worry too much about that. If you do, then obviously it's all about quality content and natural links coming to your site. And then finally, the final update I'd like to talk about here is Google Panda. Now, Google Panda is another update here. So you see Matt Cutts again, Google's engineer, talking about Panda 4.4. Now, what is Panda? Panda is about quality content. So it will look to see if your content has been published anywhere else. It'll look to see the volume of your content, and also, of course, Google are getting more clever every single day with regards to determining whether or not the writing is good quality or just verbal diarrhea that you have got published on your website. So you can't just go out and get someone to write 1,000 words of rubbish and publish a page about that and expect it to rank on Google. You've got to get writing that's good quality, that has maybe small paragraph spaces, that has subheadings, that has different sections in it and different headings, and maybe the use of italic there as well. You're linking out a little bit to other sites. You've got some images in there as well. Google can tell when a piece of content is quality. So simply focus on the reader, offer a great experience, and then you won't fall foul of the panda. So to conclude this module, let's review the brief history of SEO. So SEO really got started in the mid-90s, just shortly after the launch of the commercial web. And the first search engines at the time were fairly primitive. The most popular one was AltaVista, and the main way that they determined whether or not a page should be ranked, of course, was something called the meta keywords tag, which was a tag that you could include in your web pages that users who viewed your web pages didn't see, but it was a tag for search engines, and within those tags you could list the keywords that you wanted your web page to appear for. But of course that was open to abuse, especially that users themselves couldn't actually see that unless they viewed the source code of your web page, which was very unlikely. So the quality of search results wasn't that great. 1998, Google came along and they completely changed the way that search results were determined, because they ranked web pages not based upon the meta keywords tag largely, but largely based upon links. And that is backlinks to a page and what it said within the link text of that link pointing to your web page. So backlinks and the text within those links were a significant part of Google's algorithm to begin with, and indeed still remain to this day a significant part of Google's algorithm. However, Google have had to bring in many more things to its algorithm to deal with various cheats out there who want to try and cheat their way to the top of Google without offering a high quality resource for their readers. So that started off really in 2005 or so, with Google looking at spammy link networks and reciprocal links. But they brought in something called domain relevance and authority, which meant that it was easier to rank a page on a website with a higher reputation. So that makes sense, and this really was the bedrock of Google being able to compete better with Twitter, because it meant that, of course, if you published a web page fairly recently, just in the last few days, but on an authoritative domain that Google already trusted, then Google was more willing to rank this content highly. So then it became more easily to get fresher content ranked, and Google were confident that this fresher content was likely to be good, even though it didn't have that many links to it. 2009 or so, it started bringing in social signals as part of its algorithm. Now, no one's quite sure exactly what size of a role this plays within the algorithm, and indeed there are thought to be over 200 elements in Google's algorithm now. So anything from on-page factors to off-page factors, there's so many different elements, and we'll cover more of that later on in this course. And of course, over the last few years, we've got semantic SEO and mobile SEO. So what is semantic SEO? Semantic SEO is SEO with meaning. Google understanding the context of the searcher. So just because they're typing in a phrase doesn't necessarily mean that they're specifically looking for something. So Google try to understand why people are typing in a phrase as opposed to deliver results based upon just the words. It's the context behind the phrase. And that kind of context can be established by location, by whether or not a user's signed in, and what kind of search history they've had before, as well as many more things like the device that they're looking at. And that's where mobile SEO really comes into it. So is your website optimized for mobile? And now, of course, Google are threatening to make web pages not rank through their mobile search highly at all if your web page in your website, in fact, isn't optimized for mobile. So that's a brief history of SEO. We'll get more into different SEO techniques later on in this course, but hopefully that gives you an overview of where SEO has come from and how it has evolved over the years. Hey, welcome to another module, and today we're looking at the differences between on-site SEO, on-page SEO, and off-page SEO. So looking at my site, digitalmarketingradio.com here, let's have a think about the differences between on-site SEO, on-page SEO, and off-page SEO. So on-site SEO focuses on making the whole website all at once as efficient as possible from a search engine crawler perspective. So you want search engine crawlers to be able to crawl through your site, get through it fast and efficiently, and also make the whole experience of crawling through your site for visitors themselves very efficient and nice, a nice experience. So what I want to make sure here, first of all, is the website is very, very quick to load. So then it's the quality of the server, and it's also the quality, as we've touched on earlier on, of the mobile experience as well. So you want the site to be fully responsive and the whole website to respond very, very nicely indeed to all different types of devices. It's also doing things like ensuring that robots know to crawl certain pages or not to crawl certain pages. And that is getting in a little bit more into technical SEO, and it's probably beyond the remit of an introduction to SEO course. But suffice to say that the important facets of on-site SEO revolve around ensuring that your site is easy for search engine robots to understand. So what's the difference between on-site and on-page SEO? So if I click through to one of these pages on the site, I can see that I've got a page title here, which is audio recording equipment, Colin Gray, and I've got content down there as well. But on-page is all about ensuring that search engines understand what each page is about by, first of all, targeting certain keyword phrases to pages. So in every title, I've got a different keyword phrase that I'm going to be targeting to try and rank on Google. And this is a long-term objective. It's not necessarily going to happen overnight, because at the time of talking, digitalmarketingradio.com is a domain that's only about 6 months old, and it takes a while for that authority to build up on Google, but that doesn't mean that you can't be working on your SEO, and it is indeed very important to be consistently ensuring that you're targeting the correct keyword phrases at pages. So on-page SEO is about ensuring that there's enough content that's unique on your pages, that the keywords that you're targeting, or hopefully just the one keyword phrase, that your one primary keyword phrase that you're targeting per page is focused on the right places. And don't worry, I'm going to be going into this in a little bit more detail further on in this module. But I mean, that's on-page SEO. And what's the difference between on-page and off-page SEO? Well, off-page, you're hopefully encouraging other people to talk about you and link to you. Now, I've made this page and it's actually an interview with a chap called Colin Gray, and I've told him about it, and hopefully he will then share it with his listeners or his subscribers. So that's a way of driving traffic and hopefully maybe even a couple of links back to the site. I've also got a click to tweet here as well. So it's a quote from Colin, and that will encourage people to tweet about it. And then once people tweet about it, perhaps another blogger will find out about it. And then if they like the interview, maybe they'll talk about it and link to it themselves. So that's a way of naturally building links. And that is offsite SEO. Offsite SEO is trying to get mentions of your page, brand citations, and also links back to your site. And again, we'll cover that in a little bit more depth later on in this module. So let's have a look into the first core element of on-site SEO, and that is website speed. Now, to demonstrate how to test website speed, I'm going to show you another one of my websites, and that is the 26-week digital marketing plan. So that's 26weekplan.com. And what you'll do is you'll take the domain name. So I'm copying and pasting 26weekplan.com here. And I've got another tool open called Web Page Test. So that's webpagetest.org. So this is a free tool to use. And if you copy and paste your URL into there, click Start Test, and it says waiting at the front of the queue there. So there's another test going on at the moment. So it should start in the next minute or so. And this, in fact, will tell you how long on average your web page takes to load. Now what I'm going to do here is actually just open the home page again, because I want to show you something else just while this test is going on. You see it tells you that it started already, so there's it's ongoing at the moment. But if you have a look at the options here, it says test location, and there are lots of different test locations here as well. So when you're doing it for your website, the most important thing is to conduct the test at the location where it is nearest to the majority of your website visitors, and then you'll get a real indication as to what the speed is like for the majority of your customers. And of course, if you see that your website visitors tend to use a certain browser, Chrome is quite popular nowadays, but maybe you may have user experience issues with certain browser types. So maybe older versions of Internet Explorer could be particularly challenging for your website, or perhaps you're looking in your Google Analytics and you're seeing that people aren't converting using certain browser types. Again, the whole scope of that probably beyond what we're talking about here, but the important thing is to be aware of where your users are based and what browser they're tending to use, and using those two items which are relevant to your users. So let's go back to the test that I was conducting to see if that's concluded now. So I'm just going to click on the window above here, go back to the window, and it is indeed finished. Now, if we have a look at the results here, now we've got one F, which is a red, and the rest of them are fairly good. But the important element here is actually the total load time. That's the time that you need to be looking at here. And anything below 5 seconds is generally okay. Anything below 3 seconds is generally fast. So even though I've got an F here, that's an indication as to how much I can improve something. So I can improve this element of how my page loads, but overall the page and the whole site, in fact, is very, very fast. Faster than 2 seconds is certainly very, very fast. And you can actually click on these views and see individual files to see how long they've taken to load. So I can see that the first byte time, the green element here, took approximately, well, it's 558 milliseconds here, so about half a second. So that can be improved. I can probably shave 0.3 seconds off there, but the rest of it in terms of how files are loading, they're fairly quick. I don't have one single file that's taking too long to load, so generally this is a very good site. Now, if you look at these elements up here, let's give you a brief indication as to what they mean. So first time byte, that's essentially how long the server takes to respond to deliver that first bit of information. You've next got keep alive enabled. What keep alive is the server connection staying live when you're requesting different information from that server. So a web page, as you can see here, constitutes lots of different files. There are lots of different files. I've got 48 files here, which isn't that many. I've seen some web pages with 200 different files in there. But what keep alive does is it keeps the connection open. Instead of actually creating 200 different connections to your server to collect the information, the connection stays open, which makes it faster. Then you've got compressed transfer. So between the file going from the server to the web browser that people are using, such as Firefox or Chrome, to view the web page, then the files can be compressed, and that speeds up the transfer there and obviously the loading of the page. You've then got the compression of images. So I've just got one image on the page. It's saying not applicable, so I don't have to be concerned about that. The next stage is caching static content. So caching static content, what caching is, of course, as we've covered earlier on, is the storing of files or information. So what Google does is stores copies of your web pages on their servers so they can quickly access them afterwards. And this caching is something similar here. So what websites can do is they can cache local versions of web pages on the user's computer. So in other words, if someone opens up your web page and there are elements within that web page that aren't going to change for the foreseeable future, you can store those elements on the person's local computer, so when they come back to load your web page, then the elements that are stored on their computer will load directly from there, and only maybe a couple of items that are updated will come directly from your server. So let's have a little example of that. So looking at the 26-week plan site, so I'm doing quite a good job with that. So elements like my logo and this image here, my 4 Phases of Digital Marketing ebook. So what I'll do is I'll store those images directly on the user's computer once they visit my page, and then when they come back to it, the site will load even faster in the future because they won't have to bother to get the logo and this image directly from the server again in the future. And I'll set a rule so that after so many weeks, these images will expire on someone's computer, and then when that expiry date passes, then the web page is loaded directly from the server again, just to check to see if anything has changed. So that's an element, caching static content, that can be very, very important for improving user experience when they're coming back to your website. And last of all here, I've got the effective use of CDN. So what's a CDN? A CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. So if you've got a media heavy website, if you're showing videos, lots and lots of images, and you've got people from all over the world visiting your website, then what you want to be doing is you want to be serving that content from quite close to the user. Because if you've got someone, for example, in Australia, and you've got a web server based in the UK, then that's a lot of distance that request has to travel before the content is loaded on the user's computer. So someone in Australia will have a sluggish experience with your website compared with someone in the UK if your server is in the UK. So what a CDN is a CDN lets you store different elements of your web page, such as images, such as videos, in these different locations around the world, and then the request to load the web page will come from the original server, but the elements, the heavy file elements, will actually get delivered from the Content Delivery Network location that is closest to the end user. So it means a much better experience. The whole web page will load quicker because of that. Now, because my website 26weekplan.com isn't that media heavy, it's not too big a concern for me. You can see that the total load time is still very, very good there, and it is very good in different locations around the world. So that's why I haven't bothered about a CDN too much. But if you have an e-commerce site that's targeting all over the world with different videos and images talking about your products and services, then a CDN is very, very important. So hopefully that gives you an overview of how to test your web page and also how to improve different elements within your web page. Now, there's one other tool that I want to make you aware of, and that is the Google test tool. So what I'll do is I'll go back to 26weekplan.com, copy and paste that URL, and go to the Google page test tool. So if you just search Google for Google Page Speed Test, and then that will be the #1 result there for that. And so the Google Developers section actually will let you test web pages as well. So I'll click Analyze there for 26weekplan.com. And there we go. Google quickly come back and tell me, yes, it's mobile friendly. This is what it looks like. But it also tells me what maybe I should consider fixing. And that is render blocking JavaScript and CSS in above the fold content. So what does that mean? Well, render blocking JavaScript is a little bit of code that I might have that loads before the visual elements of my page load. So it might be possible to load that code after my web page is visually complete. So it means the visual elements of my page are loaded first and then the code after that. So hopefully the users will have a better experience. Now, I've had a look at this and it doesn't appear that it's possible for me to load the code after because it's quite integral to my page, but it's important information to look at, and it will give you lots of great advice there, you know, on user experience as well as speed test. And they'll split it down into mobile and desktop there as well. So desktop, my score is 89 out of 100 there as well. It's still talking about the JavaScript and CSS. No page is going to get 100, but I've seen plenty of pages with something like 30 or 40 out of 100. So certainly 89 out of 100 is very good. So make sure you use these couple of tools on your website. Maybe compare your results against my 26weekplan.com site and tell me how you get on. So how mobile friendly is your website? That's the next key element of on-site SEO. So back to using 26weekplan.com as my mini case study. So I've got the browser open here in a manner that I can drag it, and if you have a look to see what happens to my screen there, the whole site changes significantly as I make the site bigger or smaller. So let's just move the window of the video recording down slightly just so you can see the whole site a little bit better there. So if I drag this window open and closed, you can see that the whole look and feel of the website changes significantly. The whole text goes in, the navigation bar at the top goes underneath the logo. Have you seen that there? And you've got underneath here, you have got the opt-in of the book that goes underneath the image of the book when I make the screen narrower. So as if this was on a tablet, and this was on a mobile phone, and then you've got even small devices here as well. So you've got a site that's very, very mobile friendly, or at least looks very mobile friendly. But you've got this Google mobile friendly tool that you can use to test just to make sure that your site is mobile friendly there as well. So I've searched Google for Google mobile friendly. One of the first results is the Google Webmasters mobile friendly test. So click on that there as well. Enter your URL in there. Click Analyze. So this is a slightly more enhanced test compared with the testing that I was doing earlier on, because earlier on I was doing it talking about website speed in general. So this is just simply looking at whether or not the site is mobile friendly. So Google incorporates other elements into the test here as well. So we're nearly complete there as well. So Google just take a little bit of time just to actually decide that awesome, this page is mobile friendly there. So that's great news for that there. So it's absolutely paramount that you do this test for your website there as well. So make sure that your site is mobile friendly. So I guess another important question to ask though is, what makes a site mobile friendly? So this is the Google website there as well, giving you a few images just to explain what makes your site mobile friendly. So if you see this image in the middle here, it's using a mobile phone, but it's making people pinch your screen to read everything, and it doesn't make things that nice and easy for people to use, because they might pinch it once, they might go on to a next page, and then of course they're back to having to pinching again. And you may not think that this makes a big difference with conversion rates, but yes, it does. Lots of people have tested this, Google have tested this, and they've found that in terms of readability, usability, and people being likely to purchase something on your website goes up significantly if your site is mobile friendly. And with up to and over, in some cases, 50% of users of a website being on a mobile device, it is absolutely paramount that you ensure that your site is mobile friendly. And that's why Google want to make this part of their algorithm moving forward, because they want to ensure that the websites that they list in their search results are a good user experience for people. Because of course, if people click through to a website result, they don't like it, it's not a good experience, they come back, they might even leave Google, they might even go to Bing or go to Yahoo, go to another search engine, and Google certainly don't want that. So they want to deliver, it's in their own incentive to actually deliver high quality web pages within their search results as well as relevant content. So make sure your site is mobile friendly. And so in this next section, I'm going to cover the 8 key elements of on-page SEO. So this is really getting into the nitty-gritty of optimizing each of your web pages. So starting off with number 1, keyword research. Now you need to ensure that you're targeting the correct phrase on each page, or phrases on each page. A lot of businesses make the mistake of assuming that they think that they know what their customers refer to their products or services as. But you need to, don't assume, and just do independent research to actually determine precisely what phraseology your customers are most likely to be using. And you need to incorporate those phrases in places like your page title, your meta description, and your heading tag. So we'll cover that in great depth there, but these are essentially the elements within your web page where you need to be incorporating your target keyword phrases. Number 5, your content writing. Now you need to write great quality original content that is great for users and great for search engines. As much as possible is good. It used to be where you could probably get away with just writing a couple of hundred words of content that was fairly filler stuff, not great quality, but as long as if it was original content, then Google would quite like that. Now it's not the case. You need to write high quality original content, and that is part of on-page SEO. Number 6, alt tags and images. So it's adding certain tags to images and incorporating high quality original images within your content as well. Search engines love to incorporate images within their search results, but also socially as well. People are more likely to share your pages if you add images to them. Number 7, HTML microdata. That sounds a bit complicated, but all that is essentially additional markup that surround items on your page so Google and other search engines can understand what those items are. So what is an example of that kind of item? Well, a typical example is of a recipe. You can actually mark up around a recipe and tell Google what it is, and Google will be then likely to use elements of that within their search results. Another example is an address or a telephone number. If you tell Google specifically on your web page, this is an address and this is a telephone number, then Google is more comfortable at including that information within things like their local search results. And finally, internal linking. Yes, it's not just about linking from other web pages out there. It's also about what you do in terms of linking to other pages on your site. If you have a logical, nice flow in terms of internal linking and you use certain phraseology within those links that makes it easier for search engines to understand what the pointing to page is likely to be about, then that will assist with your search engine optimization. So let's cover these 8 areas in a little bit more depth. So how do you select the keyword phrases that you should be targeting on your website? Well, to begin with, you want to be having a little look at your competitors. So let's just use the example that we're using earlier on. So actually to search for digital marketing agency. So when I search for digital marketing agency, of course, you get lots of different results here. And you have an opportunity to have a little look at the kind of phraseology that your competitors are using on their website. So start off with a couple of phrases that you know are relevant to your business and your competitors. Find your competitor websites, then have a look at their websites and maybe put a list together of about 10 to 20 different phrases that you reckon are fairly relevant and related to what you and your competitors do. So just have a look through their websites and then come up with those phrases. Now, once you've come up with those phrases, let's say that digital marketing agency is one of them, then we can go about increasing that keyword list, that seed keyword list to get started with. So if I search for digital marketing agency in Google, you can actually see that other suggestions come up here, like online marketing agency or digital marketing firm. So first of all, that is a great source of additional keyword phrases. So that is the Google Suggest tool. Also at the very bottom of the Google page, we will see in most search results, searches related to, and then that's your keyword phrase there, digital marketing agency. So and then there are other opportunities here, such as what does a digital marketing agency do? Digital marketing firm, top digital marketing agency, digital marketing agency list. So we can, as we start clicking on these results, for instance, if I click on digital marketing firm there, then that will bring up further different results for that particular keyword phrase. We can have a look at other keyword phrases there as well. And of course, if I select digital marketing firm, then more different suggestions will come up at the top here, digital marketing company. So I can suggest digital marketing company, and then digital marketing company UK, online marketing company. So you can see how you can quickly expand your list of potential keyword phrases. Again, here at the bottom here, you've got lots of other suggested keyword phrases there. Digital marketing company names, online marketing company. So they're not all necessarily going to be that relevant, but surely fairly quickly you will come up with a list of maybe 50 or even more than that potential keyword phrases to use for your business. But what do you do with them when you've got that initial seed list of potential keyword phrases? Well, you use a tool called the Google Keyword Planner tool. So what I've done here is I've searched Google for the phrase Google Keyword Planner. And the first result here is just the Google Keyword Planner tool. So let's click on that. Now, because I'm logged into Google at the moment, my Keyword Planner tool is just loading up. You actually do need an AdWords account to use this particular tool. But don't worry, you don't actually have to spend any money at all. You just need an active Google AdWords account. You don't even need an active credit card with it actually, but it's important that you have an AdWords account and it's all working. So anyway, click on this first result, search for new keyword and add group ideas. And then what you want to do is copy and paste your keyword phrase into there. So digital marketing agency I'm using as the example here. Now you want to potentially select your target country because that will relate to the quantity of keyword phrases. So I'm going to select the UK as the target country there. So I'm going to keep it as that. I normally keep it as all languages. Why all languages if I'm probably targeting English? Well, the phraseology digital marketing agency is in English anyway, so it's really unlikely to make a big difference. And I just want to make sure that I am targeting people that happen to type in English in perhaps a foreign browser, just in case Google doesn't actually count them. So let's click Get Ideas from there. And then we will see how many people conduct those searches. Now, the important thing to click on next is keyword ideas, because by default Google loads ad group ideas, and we want to be looking at keyword volume. So let's click on keyword ideas, and then we see here, as well as telling you the average monthly search volume in the UK for this particular keyword phrase, digital marketing agency, they will tell you approximately how much people, or what they suggest you bidding on it, and that's quite an expensive keyword phrase. You get many keyword phrases that are even more expensive than that, but we're not focusing on AdWords at the moment, we're just focusing on organic SEO. So you can take that search volume as an indicator as to how many searches per month that keyword phrase gets, essentially. But look at this column here at the end, add all 801. Google are giving us 801 related suggestions of different keyword phrases there. So things like digital marketing agency UK, marketing agency London. So Google are actually telling us these phrases here are related to your original term, and by the way, here is the monthly search volume for them there as well. So a lot of incredible information, and what you can do is you can download these ideas in an Excel spreadsheet, and then obviously you can sort them by relevance and search volume after that. So that's just looking at one keyword phrase there, digital marketing agency. So if you can imagine, if you did your competitor research, brainstormed a bit in terms of the keyword phrase opportunities out there, then had a look at Google Suggest and had a look at the Google other options at the bottom of the search results, and then made your list of 50 or so keyword phrases, and then for those 50 did research here to actually find more related keyword phrases, you would quickly have several hundred keyword phrases you could be targeting. So as you notice in terms of competition, all of the keywords just about says high here. Some say medium, but there's a lot of competition for many keywords. I tend to recommend selecting keyword phrases that are searched between 100 and 1,000 times per month. So why not more than 1,000? Well, generally they're very competitive, probably not that targeted, and quite difficult to rank for organically. Why not less than 100? Well, maybe there's not that much search volume to begin with, so perhaps it's too much effort to actually rank for them. For when you actually get the rankings, maybe you're not going to get that much traffic. So I tend to go for that. That's just my own personal indicator, but hopefully that gives you an overview there. So what you're looking for then maybe is a list of about 100 keywords in total that you're going to be targeting on different pages on your website. You want to be selecting keyword phrases that are hyper relevant to your business and your products, are likely to be call to action keyword phrases. So there we go. That's you starting off with keyword research. Now, the second key element of on-page SEO is your page title. So what exactly is your page title? Now, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that a page title is the same as a heading. And no, it's a naming convention potentially issue with HTML, but that's another story. A page title doesn't appear visually within your page. So, for example, looking at my website, digitalmarketingradio.com, here is a web post, and you've got the main heading that says Google Plus for Business Tips Martin Sheverington. If you listen to the video, I can't actually pronounce his surname, but that's a different story. So we've got this as the heading. So we've also got the pipe mark and then DMR hashtag 93, but that's not the title. So I'll show you where the title actually resides. So this is actually the page listed on Google. So I've searched Google for this actually exact title, and you can see that my YouTube listing and also my digitalmarketingradio.com page is appearing within the Google search results. But look at this here. This is the page title. It doesn't include, if you've noticed, the hashtag and episode number at the end, so it's something different to the heading there. And it appears nicely here. You've got a nice descriptive keyword phrase here, Google Plus for Business Tips hyphen, and then you've got the name of the person that I'm interviewing. So that's a nice format of a page title. So where can you actually find your page title within your web page code? Well, of course, we have to look at the source code again, and I will do a little search for the phrase just out of the video screen here, so I'll move it up here to show you for the phrase Google Plus for Business Tips. And that is in fact the very first element that includes this keyword phrase there. So you've got the title tag here, Google Plus for Business Tips hyphen Martin Sheverington, closed title. That is your page title, and that is what appears in Google search results. So having a page title that is the correct length, very important. Having a page title that incorporates your target keyword phrase, very important as well, because what Google will actually do is they will make the element of your page title bold that incorporates your keyword phrase, making it much more likely for people to click through to that result here. So let's have a look at an interesting tool here from Moz. So if you just search Google for page title preview Moz, click on the first result there as well, and you will get a blog post with a nice little widget in it that gives you the opportunity to actually enter a potential page title in there and your keyword phrase that people would be using to search for that, and then to see what it looks like. So this is what my page title would look like. This is the target keyword phrase, Google Plus for Business Tips, and let's see what it looks like, or would look like, and there we go. That's what it would look like if someone searched Google for it there. You've got Google Plus for Business Tips highlighted nicely there as well, and nicely formatted, no cutoff there as well. So in terms of length, you're talking about approximately 50 characters, including spaces now. Much longer than that, it's going to get cut off now, so it's not a good idea to make a page title much longer than that. But it is very, very, very important to, first of all, include a keyword phrase that you are targeting for your page, your primary keyword phrase that you're targeting for each page within your page title, because if you do that, Google will think that your page is particularly relevant for that, and also it will encourage more click-throughs from your page title. So hopefully the click-through rate will also be part of Google's algorithm, and that will over time increase your ranking for that. So one of the most, if not the most important places to include your keyword phrase, the page title. Now the third key element of on-page SEO is your meta description. So let's take a little look at where we find that. Now to show you this, I'm first of all back on the homepage of digitalmarketingradio.com. So let's have a look at the source code here. So if I click View Page Source, then we will have a look to see where we can find the meta description. So remember, this was the page title. So just below that, in line 12 here, we've got meta name equals description, content equals, and there we go. Look at this content here. Welcome to Digital Marketing Radio with David Bain, where the world's leading digital marketers share their top tips and strategies. So that's the meta descriptions that describes the content on the page. But I guess the key question is, where do you find that content on Google, and why does that impact SEO? So to answer that question, let's have a look at Google search. And I'm just on a regular google.com search here. So let's search for Digital Marketing Radio and see what happens. Okay, I've searched for Digital Marketing Radio, and here you can see the first organic result is Digital Marketing Radio with David Bain. So that's my site there. Nice page title, you notice there. So it encourages people to click through. It's got my name in it there as well. It also says official site. So that if there's other listings here, such as my SoundCloud listing of Digital Marketing Radio, then people are more likely, obviously, to click through to the website because it says official site there. But anyway, we weren't talking about the page title for this section. It's the meta description. And here we go. Here it is. That's the phraseology. That's the exact sentence that was included within the meta description there. So that is what Google use as their description underneath your URL within their search results. Now, it's generally not thought that Google directly use the meta description as part of their algorithm. So they're not looking for a keyword phrase within the meta description necessarily. However, if you search Google for a particular keyword phrase, for this example it was just digital marketing radio, Google will again embolden the text within the meta description, and surely this will enhance your click-through rate. And click-through rate is definitely thought to be part of Google's algorithm. So if you have a higher click-through rate, you will increase your rankings over time on Google, just part of Google's algorithm. So in other words, if your site is listed number 2, but you have a lovely page title and meta description, you get a higher click-through rate consistently than the site on number 1 on Google for that keyword phrase. All other things being equal, you're more likely to, over time, become number 1 over the other site because of that click-through rate. So meta description, very important from a usability perspective, explains what happens on each page. Now it should be a unique description on each page. Do not have the same meta description across every page on the site. That's a mistake. It's a ranking opportunity. It is an opportunity for you to pinpoint why your page is different. And of course, if you have a different meta description on each page of the site and Google displays a different description for each of your pages, Google are more likely to be confident that your page offers unique different content and be more comfortable with ranking your pages over time. So how do I go about by ensuring that my meta description and of course the page title is optimized properly for Google search? Well, I use this free WordPress SEO plugin from yoast.com. So that's the website address, yoast.com/WordPress/plugin/SEO. And if you download that, you can search for this. It's probably just easier to search for WordPress SEO plugin. And if you install this in your blog, then when you're editing a page, and this is me editing my homepage within WordPress on digitalmarketingradio.com. So welcome to Digital Marketing Radio. I've got my post content there as well. But what Yoast SEO does is it adds this option here at the bottom of the post. So it gives you a preview of what the title would look like. You can enter a target keyword phrase here. You can enter your SEO title and your meta description. Remember, your SEO title should be approximately 50 characters including spaces. Your meta description should be approximately 156 characters, but it depends on the letter size, of course, as well. But this will then result in the title and the description in the vast majority of instances being used in Google's search result for that particular page. So you should always be doing this for every single page on your site. You should be starting off with a unique target keyword phrase for each page, have a unique title, and have a unique meta description. And that is the core starting off point from great on-page SEO. Now the fourth key element of on-page SEO is heading tags. So can you remember the difference between a title tag and a heading tag? If not, no problem. We've covered a title tag, of course. Now, title tag isn't visually seen on the web page itself by users. It's only seen by search engines by crawling through the source code of a website. So I'm on digitalmarketingradio.com again, having a look at a recent episode that I published called Personal Branding Strategy with Chris Ducker. So that's an interview I recorded a few weeks ago and published, but let's have a look at the source code of that. And we'll remind ourselves in terms of the title tag, it's Personal Branding Strategy - Chris Ducker. So that's the title tag. But what about the heading? Okay, looking back on the page itself, this big text here, Personal Branding Strategy - Chris Ducker plus the pipe and DMR #88, that is the heading. So there's a heading tag behind that, and that's an indicator, a strong indicator to Google as to the purpose of the page. So we'll have a look in the source code again and actually look for the heading tag. So what does a heading tag look like? Well, you actually have to search for, so if you use find, I'm pressing Control F, find, and then if you go open bracket like this and H1, and that's what you're looking for. Now there should only be one heading tag in a page, and if you do it like this, like in the video here on the top right hand side, you can search for where the heading tag is. So it's just down here in the source code. So if I can drag the video screen down there, then you will see H1. Don't worry about this piece of code there as well, because that's just a little bit of extra notification really to search engines, but this bit is what you're looking for here, and that is the heading. So that's actually the heading tag, and you can see where DMR #88 comes in there as well. Okay, so that's H1 in the source code, but is also visually seen on the web page, and generally it's the biggest text on a web page unless it's styled otherwise. So a heading tag is the most significant on-page factor when it comes to SEO. So it's important that you incorporate your target keyword phrase within your heading tag. So my target keyword phrase for this particular page is either personal branding strategy or Chris Ducker, because Chris Ducker's a fairly well-known chap online. So it would be great if I can get this page launched and available fairly high in Google for either of those phrases. So I did mention heading tags, and you can actually use H2 tags, H3 tags in exactly the same format as heading tags. And if you're producing a really comprehensive article here, what you do is you would do something like software couldn't live without here. You would do that as an H2 or an H3 heading tag. So let's have a look at the source code again and check to see if there's any H2s or H3s. So up to find here again, Control F, and we will search for H2s. Now there's not H2s, but there is H3s, and that's what I've used to style the subheadings there. So that's decent practice there as well. You've got software couldn't live without there as well. And if you have a look again up here, you can see there's 4 mentions of H3s. My number one takeaway there as well. So ideally, this is an absolute best practice, because ideally what you do is you continue along a theme on a single page. So this would be a page about personal branding strategy, and perhaps this subheading would be something like looking deeper into personal branding strategy for smaller businesses, or something like that. So you'd perhaps add the keyword phrase or a related keyword phrase within the subheading and continue to write about that. So H2s, H3s, H4s, down to H6s are opportunities to write subheadings within your page to further emphasize to search engines precisely what the page is about. Now, nowadays, there's no need at all to continually repeat a keyword phrase. And in fact, in terms of optimization, just include it once in your title, in your meta description, in your H1, and somewhere within your body content, and then write naturally around that. Write lots of decent text that isn't available elsewhere online, and that's your best way of optimizing now, of course, apart from doing off-page SEO as well, but we'll get into that as well. But hopefully that gives you a summary of what heading tags are and what they're used for and why they're important to incorporate your keyword phrases in there. Now, the 5th key element of on-page SEO is content writing. Now, I touched on this in the previous video, but it is absolutely essential to emphasize the imperative nature of producing high quality content for your site. So you've gone through the stages already of doing your keyword research, of optimizing different facets of your on-page, but there's no point in doing that at all unless you've produced high quality, relevant, related content for each of those pages and linked them up well within your website. But in terms of the content, how do you produce that content, and indeed how much content do you produce and in what format? Well, first of all, how do you produce the content? Well, a lot of people just farm out their content writing production to somewhere offshore or to some lowly person in the business that perhaps doesn't even know anything about the brand. And that's terrible. You know, that worked well in terms of getting pages ranked highly in Google 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, but certainly not now. Because what you've got to have consistent high rankings is strong user signals. So what are user signals? User signals are when someone visits your web page, and what do they do after that? Do they go somewhere else on your site? Do they click on the back button? Or do they stay several minutes on the page that they landed on and devour the content? There are lots of ways that Google can actually determine whether or not a user stayed a reasonable amount of time on a web page, so that is part of Google's algorithm. Okay, in terms of quality of content, now I interviewed this lady Elisa Gabbert. She's the content marketing manager from WordStream. There she is on the WordStream website. Now what Elisa explained in the interview was that what she's found is that articles published in the past on the WordStream website, it's often articles of around 3,000 words that she's had most traction from. So people have spent the most time on the page. People have been more likely to share those kind of articles on Twitter or on Facebook socially. So even though it took a lot more time to create the article, the value of traffic, of shares online, of links back to that page has really made it worthwhile. So that's certainly something to think about. And it reminded me of another website called Conversion Rate Experts, actually, because any post that I've seen on their site in the past, if you scroll down through it, this is just a recent post. This is just not a random example of the lengthiest one that they've produced by any means, but you see the length of that. And what they're finding, obviously, is that the longer the article, as long as if it provides value, then the more likelihood that it's going to get shared online as well. And that's interesting. That's from a firm that obviously specialized in conversion rates. So that's something to think about in terms of content. You don't necessarily have to be publishing content all the time, every single day of the week. Much better off nowadays to be thinking about quality content, content very much relevant and very much authoritative compared with other content out there. And the sixth key element of on-page SEO is alt tags and images. Now, you obviously all know what an image is on a website, but how does it really enhance SEO, and what is an alt tag? Well, we'll have a look at this post here in Digital Marketing Radio, the Chris Ducker one on personal branding strategy. So if I scroll down, I can see that there's an image there of Chris with a caption saying personal branding strategy and his name there as well. And if I click on the image, it goes to a really big version of the image as well there. So how does that benefit things? Well, first of all, if you share this particular page, then this image will actually come up as the image next to the link to the document in different social sharing sites. So if you share it on Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter, the image will appear there on different social sites. And that's happened to me on Twitter. So here's an example of Twitter. So this is me actually writing a tweet with this image next to it there as well, and it's got like 5 retweets and loads of favorites there as well. So that's fairly good there, and it has been shown by quite a few people that images increase the likelihood of social shares. So having that image on the site certainly helps with that. So what about though SEO? Well, if I look at the source code there, I'm just going to look for personal branding strategy again in the source code. So let's find that. So I'll show you what I'm doing there. So if I do that, I am actually searching on the page rather than the source code. So view source first, of course, and then find personal branding strategy. And here we go. So we'll go down the source code of the site and we'll find the actual image. So that's the heading here, and we've also got alt here. So alt here, now this is the image. This is the code for the image here as well. This is actually the URL of the image right here. So source equals, and that's the URL of the image, but alt equals personal branding strategy Chris Ducker. Now what that is doing is it's saying to Google, this is what the image is about. So Google actually understands that this image is relating to personal brand strategy and also probably has Chris Ducker in it as well. And if Google starts to trust the page, then it's more likely to be able to rank the page for that. And not only the page, but also include it in their Google image search. So I've just a little image search for Chris Ducker, I mean, the image actually comes up as #1 for personal branding strategy, Chris Ducker, but I mean, no one would probably type that in. But if you type in Chris Ducker, he's a fairly famous speaker around the world, and we see a little bit down here, we've got the image here. And if we click on it here, it gives you an option of going straight back into the page. So if I click back there, and that's a link from Google image search directly into this page. Not bad, eh? Now, granted, it's not near the top, but this has only been published fairly recently, actually, at the time of recording. And if I keep on doing this with every single person that I record with, I've got 2 options here of getting the image ranked. #1 with the keyword phrase here, personal branding strategy, and #2 with the author name. And as the site becomes more authoritative over time, then that image ranking will increase, and that's certainly another path of traffic into the website. So, SEO isn't just about ranking on regular Google search. There are lots of other opportunities with SEO, and I'll talk a little bit about that in future videos. And the 7th key element of on-page SEO is HTML microdata. Now, this is a little bit complicated for an introduction to SEO type course, but I wanted to touch on it just to emphasize the importance of it. So even if you don't necessarily understand it yourself, so that you can actually question your webmaster, your web designer about it, just to make sure that microdata has been used, if at all possible, on your website. So in 2010, Google announced the support for rich snippets as basically microdata appearing in their search results. So what is it? Well, if you have a look at certain search results, recipes is probably the most popular example. You'll see elements like the rating system, the reviews, the time it takes to cook something, calories in there as well. So lots of little extra elements within the search results. Even the image is counted as rich snippets from microdata. So where does this information come from? Well, what a website designer needs to do if any kind of content supports microdata is ensure that that piece of content is surrounded by microdata. So let me emphasize what I mean by that. So I'm going into a website called schema.org at the moment, and this is the website, an independent website that includes lots of code that you can use to surround certain pieces of content on your website to emphasize to search engines what that content is. So let's show an example or two here. So if I click on schemas, then if I click on, for example, local business, and then if I maybe look for something like address, and what this is giving me now is a piece of code with and without microdata. So this is without markup. This is a normal piece of code that just includes an email address. See, this is the code for email address here, and this is the code for linking to the website there. So it's essentially the address, email address, and the website of this person here called Jane Doe. However, if you look at the code with microdata, it's a bit more complicated, yes, but you can see every piece of the content is written up with additional code surrounding it. So it's telling Google this is a name of someone, this is someone's job title, this is the address locality, region, postal code, telephone number there as well. So all this additional code is giving information to search engines. It's helping search engines decipher what the content is on your page. Now, of course, users browsing your web pages can't see all this code. As far as they're concerned, your page hasn't changed at all. But as far as search engines are concerned, they are much more confident with regards to what the content on your page means and what's it for. And then if they are more confident about what your content's about, then they're more likely to use it in different places, like local searches or maps. So enhance your listings and search results, and that in turn will bring you more traffic. So hopefully that's a good summary there of what microdata is and how it's so good. Now, it's not limited to things like addresses and names. There are just so many different things. So if you look at things like employee, event, fax number, and we can go back to lots of things like reviews, products, offers, places, persons, organizations. So the key thing is here is to employ a decent website designer that understands the importance of microdata and ensures that every piece of content that you produce is marked up as appropriately as well as possible to make it as easy as possible for search engines to understand, and that will certainly help with your SEO. And finally, in the key elements of on-page SEO, internal linking. So not only is linking the way that Google actually finds your site to begin with from a link from another site, it's also the way that they actually find other pages on your site. So perhaps you've got a link back to one page. So I've got this page here, which is an interview that I recorded with Chris Garrett from Copyblogger. And if you actually scroll down this page further, you can see at the very bottom of it, I have related episodes. Now I've got a nice theme, a nice WordPress theme that automagically in fact, decides which other posts that I've previously published are related to the current post. So obviously it'll look at things like page title or heading or the actual content of the post, but it's a lovely way of linking to older episodes, ensuring that Google still finds them, and linking to another page or posts demonstrates a relatedness between the one that the search engine is crawling and the one that you're linking out to. So the fact that the other page is about smart marketing objectives here is obviously fairly related to this one, which is about digital marketing technology and blogging. So it's a really clever little system here, having it inbuilt into the WordPress theme, but you don't even have to have a theme that has this kind of thing naturally inbuilt into it if you're using WordPress, because there's this plugin called Yet Another Related Posts plugin, or YARP for short, and this plugin's been around for a while, but it will do a similar kind of thing. It'll find related posts and link to them automatically from your site. So that's a lovely way of automatically linking to other pages on your site, other posts on your site, without having to manually do it. However, perhaps for the most important categories and pages within those categories on your website, it is a good idea to link to those pages from relevant categories. And then you're really demonstrating a great relationship between them for Google, and demonstrating that those pages and posts and categories are indeed related. One final thing that you should have regarding to links is an XML sitemap. Now this is a plugin again that you can get from WordPress, and this isn't for users to read. This is actually for search engines. So generally it'll be at yourdomainname.com/sitemap.xml, and you can submit that URL to Google Webmaster Tools. If you haven't been on Google Webmaster Tools before, just search Google for Google Webmaster Tools and find out about that. And it should be fairly easy for you to submit this URL of your sitemap to them. And then what happens is it's automatically updated whenever you publish a new post or page on your site, and then Google will see that by the fact that this has been updated, and therefore make it more likely for your page or post to appear in Google search result a little bit more quickly. So this is important to have, but probably even more important is to ensure that your internal linking is good. So you've got a good category and pages structure, and hopefully you've got some kind of automated way to tell Google about previous and past posts, because otherwise you might forget about them. And you don't want to do that, especially if it's great content. Now let's finish off this module by having a look at off-page SEO. Now, off-page SEO has changed significantly over the last few years. You know, back in 2005, when I was heavily into building my own sites and ranking them online and making revenue through different advertising streams, it was so easy to get pages ranked, just by swapping links. And you know, by watching a few of the videos earlier on in this course, that is not a good idea now. It doesn't work now. Google has clamped down on those kind of activities, and rightly so. It's good to focus on quality relationships, quality links, and getting quality pages ranked in Google. That's good, absolutely, and that's the way it should be. However, as I've also mentioned, Google still look at links as a significant part of its algorithm. So how can you actually get quality links without actually doing anything like buying links or just asking sites to link to you for the sake of it? Well, obviously, the way to do it is to produce outstanding quality content yourself that people would naturally want to link to, and give them a reason to link to it. Now, you're not actually giving them a reason like giving them a bunch of cash to link to it. You're actually making it worthwhile for them to link to it because they either find it to be a valuable resource, or perhaps it's helping to promote them a little bit as well. So let's show you what I mean. So here's another post that I published quite recently on digitalmarketingradio.com. So it's a roundtable discussion that I hosted through Google Hangouts on Air with some other top digital marketers. And of course, I published this, did a summary of what happened, tweeted about it there as well. And if people contributed and they were happy with what they contributed, then why wouldn't the people that I interviewed naturally want to share it with their audience? Because it makes them look good as well. So one of the guys that I featured as part of the roundtable was a guy called Johnny Ross, so great digital marketer based up north in the UK. And the rise of growth hacker marketing was a post that he wrote, but also as part of that post, he embedded the video, and he also linked to Digital Marketing Radio as well, completely naturally there as well. You see the link there. I didn't ask him to do that at all, but he was actually wanting to do that simply because he thought the website was a great resource for his audience as well. And lots of other people that I've interviewed have done the same. So here's another feature here in a different blog. There's another blog here by this chap called Matthew Loomis, buildyourownblog.net. He featured the video recording and also linked to the site as well. Susan Abbott, on her website, she's got a bio, but she's also got a section on her site, publications content, and this is the interview that she gave me, and that's published on Digital Radio, so she's linked to it directly from that area of her site. Another example here is the website staff.com, so a very authoritative domain there. I interviewed one of the founders of that business, Liam Martin, and he's nicely linked back to Digital Marketing Radio as well. You know, again, doesn't have to do it, but he considers it to be a great resource for his audience. So hopefully this shows you that if you build decent content and give people an incentive to link to you, then they will link to you some of the time. Not all the time, but they'll link to you if they think that what you do is a great resource for their audience. So something to think about. You know, again, it's beyond the remit of this course to go into so many different linking strategies that you can use. But to a certain degree, it's about brainstorming yourself. What can you do yourself on your site to produce outstanding different content and then share it socially and make it so great that hopefully people would naturally want to share it with their audience? If you can make content like that, then you won't have to worry about link building. So welcome to the How to Measure SEO module. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will be aware that Google has made life for us SEOs a little bit more challenging over the last few years, notably with the not providing of keyword data from Google Analytics. But of course, just because that data is masked doesn't mean that it's actually not there. It doesn't mean that traffic doesn't come from organic search. It's just more difficult to define. So one of the first things that we have to look at when defining the amount of traffic that's coming to us from organic search is having a look at click-through rates from SERPs, from those search engine results pages. So let's have a look at how we actually measure click-through rates. Now, there have been 5 or 6 different studies released over the last 7 or 8 years with regards to what click-through rates can be expected from Google search. And Google, understandably, wants to keep this information really, really quiet, because if you can actually be fairly confident with regards to how much traffic you're getting from organic search, then there's an argument to say that you won't spend as much on paid search. So I understand their perspective. But this is one of the more recent studies that's been completed by a company called AWR. So advancedwebranking.com/CTR study is the URL of this, if you want to go to it. And what they've done is they've had a look at click-through rate, but under different conditions. So let me just scroll the page up slightly here so you can get a better view as to what I'm looking at here. Okay, so this is comparing desktop against mobile click-through rate. And this is the click-through rate percentage here on the left-hand column. And at the bottom column, you're talking about the average position in Google organic search results. So what it's saying essentially is that position 1 gets a click-through rate of 28%. If it's on mobile, it's just very slightly less. But position number 2 in desktop gets a higher percentage compared with mobile. So that's a little bit interesting. And also, if you look second page, third page onwards, it appears that more people scroll onto the second page and onto the third page with mobile and are more likely to click through compared with desktop. So that's quite interesting data there. You can also have a look at the data of searches with ads. So if there are 3 ads at the top of results, then you're only going to get click-through rate on average of 16% for the position number 1. And if there aren't any ads, 23% there. So that impacts click-through rate as well. You've also got branded against unbranded search. So branded is quite interesting here. So this is expected here. So branded searches, if someone searches for a particular brand, they generally know what they're looking for. So the click-through rate's about 45%, unbranded 23% there, and then it changes as positions go on there. You've got search intent there. So if someone is looking for something specifically, then there's a higher click-through rate in the higher positions there. Long tail keyword phrases there as well. So you've got 3 words, 4 words more, and what happens there. So you're more likely to get click through in position 1 if it's just 1 word, but if it's multiple words, then you're more likely to get click throughs as you go down the results as well. So a lot of interesting data there to think about. And you get some fairly intelligent tools that can forecast what they think your click-through rate is going to be based upon your keyword data. So the science of this is getting more interesting, and it will continue to get more interesting over time, and just as well it is, because obviously with Google hiding this kind of information or not really releasing this kind of information, perhaps understandably, then we have to go to other sources to get it. But this gives you an idea of what to expect, and it also shows you why it's so important not just to get onto the first page of Google, but to get hopefully position 1 or 2 for your target keyword phrase. Because from 1 to 2, there's a massive drop down in click-through rates. From 2 to 4, massive drop down there as well. So it's going to give you a lot more traffic if you can increase your ranking from 3 to 1 than it will do from 10 to 3, for example, here. So what you need to do now is have a think about where you're ranking, and then maybe target the keyword phrases that you're ranking on the bottom of page 1 or on page 2 to try and get to the top of page 1, and perhaps the keyword phrases that you're not ranking for at all at the moment. Maybe that's something that isn't worth focus on until you've improved the rankings of your keywords at the bottom of page 1. Something to think about. So now let's take a brief look at how you can campaign manage your SEO, how you can measure things like your keyword rankings over time. Now, there are a few different tools that you can use for this type of activity. I'm going to use a tool called AdWords SEO, so you can find that over at analyticsseo.com. So one of the things that you can do inside this tool is monitor the rankings of your keyword phrases over time. So just for this little example, I've put in a few different keyword phrases that I could be targeting for digitalmarketingradio.com, and you see how they change a bit as the weeks go by. Now, one interesting one that picked up here was mobile website SEO tips. That keyword phrase, which could be an opportunity, is currently ranking at number 18, which generally means number 8 on the second page of Google search results. So that would be an example of a keyword phrase which is ranking reasonably high, but probably not bringing too much traffic at the moment. So what I would want to do is focus on that. So one simple thing that I could do is link to that page directly from my homepage to see if that makes a difference to rankings. I could talk about that page in particular a little bit more socially to see if someone will link to it. And there are loads of ways to actually drive traffic or drive links to it. But I just wanted to demonstrate there that in terms of targeting different keyword phrases, it's good to keep an eye on where things are ranking and where the opportunities lie. And as I mentioned in the previous video, opportunities tend to be keyword phrases that are ranked on the second page or bottom of the first page because they're easier to get higher and more likely to actually drive traffic more quickly than other keyword phrases that are ranking lower down. Now, the nice thing about having a pro tool like Analytics SEO is it lets you do things like discovering keywords that are actually driving traffic to your site, but perhaps you weren't aware of beforehand, because it links up your analytics data, your Webmaster Tools data, and also some of their own proprietary data as well. So keywords like this, like Andrew J. Cass, that's someone that I've interviewed, is currently ranking number 25 on Google, is bringing in 90 searches per month on Google. There's PR strategy examples, currently ranking number 34 there. That brings in an average of 390 searches per month. So it helps me pinpoint other opportunities a little bit better and more efficiently than doing keyword research myself. But of course, this is probably the second stage of SEO and something that you'd only consider using once you've actually optimize your site properly and you're fairly a little bit more comfortable with what you're doing from an SEO perspective. So that takes us just about to the end of our SEO training course, an introduction to search engine optimization. Oh, I hear you say. So here's a quick reminder of what we covered. We started off looking at what is SEO and why is it important. So things like what precisely is the difference between organic search results and paid results, and why that makes a massive difference to your budget, what you can do to get into those organic results, and why even though Google is hiding a lot of its information with regards to SEO in Google Analytics, that doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't getting organic traffic. So you should be focusing time on organic search. Number 2, how do search engines work? So we started off at the very beginning with Alta Vista, why that behaved entirely differently compared with Google nowadays, and why Google effectively took over the market. That was in a brief history of SEO, so pulling together how things changed over time as well, how Google's algorithm changed, how it's been incorporating other signals into its algorithm, what Penguin, Panda and Hummingbird and different updates like that are. Number 4, on-site, on-page and off-site SEO, why SEO just isn't just one discipline, why you need to be looking at things like your page speed, how your site performs on mobile devices, how each page is optimized for your keyword phrases, and making sure that search engine robots can crawl through your site effectively. And off-site SEO, so without actually actively going to build links yourself and buying links, how you can also encourage other sites to link to you and reference you and therefore improve your search engine optimization. Number 5, key elements of on-site and on-page SEO. So I went into a little bit more depth here with regards to things like title tags, heading tags, meta descriptions, and other elements within a web page that you need to be focusing on, how you can actually improve your ranking significantly just by targeting the right places in your page for your appropriate keyword phrases. And then number 6, how to measure the impact of SEO. There's no point in actually going ahead, SEOing your site really well, targeting loads of different keyword phrases without knowing how they're ranking. Because if you've got a page ranking maybe something like number 5, number 6 on the first page of Google, with a little bit of effort, and by driving it up to number 1 or number 2, you can more than double your traffic from that particular keyword phrase in organic search. So a lot to think about. So hopefully you feel a little bit more comfortable now with the basics of SEO and really what SEO is and how it affects your website and how really important it still is moving forward. A lot of blog posts come out with some silly comments about why SEO is dead or SEO is dying. That's not the case. Think about Google search. You'll always use Google search, at least for the foreseeable future. And as long as search still exists, organic search still exists, then SEO will still exist. And I tell you what, SEO doesn't just apply to Google search. There are other more progressive search engines out there. Did you know that YouTube, for example, is the number 2 search engine in the world? It's the number 2 most popular search engine in the world. Have a search for digital marketing on YouTube, and you can find one of my videos there just to demonstrate the value of traffic from other sources there as well. Have a search for digital marketing in the Apple App Store and find one of my apps there fairly prominently as well. And I focus on those different areas just as examples of search. Search exists all over the place, so don't think as organic search as just being about Google. So hopefully I've whetted your appetite a little bit there just to improve your knowledge of SEO further and keep on learning. So hopefully you found this mini course interesting. I would really appreciate just 2 things. One is just tell me your thoughts. So wherever you're watching this, just 1 or 2 thoughts would be much appreciated in terms of how you found the course. Perhaps a little bit of constructive criticism, or if you loved it, say that you loved it, and I'd appreciate that as well. And number 2, if you could possibly share this course with a few friends of yours, I would really, really appreciate that as well. It's been wonderful sharing some time with you. I really appreciate the fact that you've actually seen this course right through to the end. So I do hope that you found it valuable. Hopefully you continue along the SEO journey. We'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.